All right, hi guys. So this is part 2 of the recording. And so what we're going to go over today is basically everything that you guys need to know for part 2 of your assignment, which it will be titled as part 2 in Google Classroom. Okay, so part 2 focuses on figurative language. So if we look at this page here, which I already taught in part 1, so please make sure that you guys have already watched part 1 and that you're focusing on part 2. Today, we are going to focus on figurative language and how that plays a role in the creative process of writing a memoir, because next week, you will be writing your own memoir. So today, we're focusing on standard LAFS 910 RI 2.4. It's this one down here, the second one, and we're going to determine the meaning of words and phrases and how they're used in the text, including figurative meaning, connotative, and technical meanings, and how all of that impacts the words and the tone of the text. So if we exit this for a second, and we scroll here, actually I want to show you guys this. We are currently in the Wednesday-Thursday session of this activity. So we're going to do Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm going to bulk in Friday because Friday's activity isn't too complicated. So for Wednesday, Thursday, where you need to watch this video, which is part 2 of your assignment, and we're going to focus on slides 9 through 13 in the PowerPoint. Then you're going to complete the part 2 activity in the handout, and we're going to go over that as well. Please remember again that this is exactly where you guys can reach me. Make sure that you're actually reaching out to anyone that you know doesn't have me on Remind or Instagram, and that you're actually telling them to add me on Google Classroom, Remind, and Instagram. And please remember that my office hours are 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And so if we exit this and we scroll down, we're going to start with figurative language. So figurative language, right? We went over this already. At some point before distance learning started, we did an activity during rotations in which it was a 2-day activity, and we learned about figurative language and how to change figurative language and literal language and similes and metaphors and all of that. So when writing your own memoir, you will be required to use specific language techniques to make your writing sound better and more professional. One of the best ways to make your writing sound strong is to use figurative language, right? We want our writing to sound more creative, to sound more professional, to sound like an actual writer is doing it, right? Anyone can be an author. And one of the best ways to make yourself sound like an author is to use figurative language. So figurative language means imaginative. It's language that helps us produce images in a reader's mind and expresses ideas in fresh and vivid ways. It conveys ideas in a creative way rather than literally. So then we also have literal language. And literal language means straightforward or factual. So in figurative language, it helps us use our imagination to actually picture what's happening in the text. So that's what similes and imagery and metaphors, that's what they all do. They help us understand the text a little better by helping us imagine what's going on in the text, rather than just a plain, boring, literal sentence, right? So instead of, I touched the desk, I'm saying, I ran my hand over the cold, hard surface of the wooden desk. Now that's using imagery. And by using that imagery, I can now imagine how the desk actually feels. So instead of just picturing a person touching the desk, now I'm actually picturing what it would be like if I touched the desk, if I touched the cold, hard wooden desk. So that's why figurative language is so important, and that's why I will be requiring, in your memoir assignment, I will be requiring for you to include figurative language in your memoir. So we're just going to go over types of figurative language. We've already gone over these in the past. And so what we're going to do is we're basically going to review it. So the first one that we have is a simile. And a simile is comparing two things using like or as. And you guys already know this one. It's the easiest one. And on the side, on the right panel, there's an example. This example is from the excerpt that you guys read from Michelle Obama's Becoming. They use the word everyone was most afraid of, ghetto, dropping it like a lit match, right? So I put in bold the part that's using the simile, right? Dropping it like a lit match. So they would drop the word ghetto like a lit match, like something that set the world on fire. And that helps us understand how everyone viewed this, word, right? So when you have a lit match, you're not waiting. So if you have a match, you're not waiting for the flame to run to your fingers, right? You're going to drop it right away. And so the word ghetto, that's how they would use it, right? They would say it like, oh, I can't really say that word too much because, it's ghetto. And so that's how people viewed where she was growing up and the school that she went to. And they would say it like it's this big, giant concept. And so it helps us understand how they would actually view the school and how the school was portrayed by the media and by the people around her, the people in her neighborhood. The second example, we have metaphor. So metaphor is comparing two things not using like or as, right? And we have a metaphor like time is money, or she is the wind beneath my wings. Time is money is a very simple metaphor, and it's just saying that every minute that you waste is money that you're wasting, especially when you're working. And a lot of you guys know this, a lot of you guys that have jobs, right? The more hours you put into your job, the more money you're gonna make. So time at school also will help you get more money in the future. So it's not just money that you're making right now, it's the time that you're investing in yourself and your future. That's gonna be money in the future that you're gonna make for yourself. And then she is the wind beneath my wings. So this is from a very famous movie, and a very famous song too. She is the wind beneath my wings just means that she is the person who helps me fly, right? Who helps me soar, who guides me through life, and who inspires me. Hyperbole, right, is a purposeful exaggeration for emphasis or humor. So in hyperbole, you're exaggerating something, right? So we have, it was 1,000 degrees outside. We've been in quarantine for an eternity, right? We've only been in quarantine about 20 days now. So it hasn't been an eternity, but it does feel that way. So in using hyperbole, you're exaggerating something, right? And in Michelle Obama's Becoming, we have, again, an example from your excerpt. So in the first part, she says, I tore through the lessons, quietly keeping tabs on where I stood among my peers as we charted our progress from long division to pre-algebra, from writing single paragraphs to turning in full research papers. So I tore through the lessons. She didn't actually tear through the lessons. She just like did them quickly. It's an exaggeration. It's an exaggeration. So another form of hyperbole is saying, it's 1,000 degrees outside. I literally died. You did not literally die. You are still alive, but it's hyperbole. And then we have imagery, which if you see this example, it's the one that I gave you guys 2 seconds ago. But imagery is words or phrases that appeal to the 5 senses, and our 5 senses are taste, touch, smell, sight, and hearing. And so the example says, she ran her fingers along the cold, smooth surface of the wooden desk. Instead of saying she touched the desk, we're saying she ran her fingers along the cold, smooth surface of the desk. And so now we know it's cold, we know it's smooth, and we know it's wooden, right? Because there are other types of dust that you could run your fingers through. And this appeals to your sense of touch. So imagery always appeals to one of the 5 senses. So when you're writing about imagery, especially in the activity that you guys are going to see in a little bit, you need to tell me what it appeals to. Does it appeal to taste? Does it appeal to touch, to smell, to sight, or to hearing? You have to tell me which one it appeals to. All right, then we also have personification. So personification is giving human-like qualities to non-human things. So this is from a memoir by Melissa Febos called Abandon Me, and the example says, the ocean disappears things. It is a hungry, grabbing thing, right? The ocean is not a person. It is not hungry. It doesn't grab anything, but that's how she's describing it. She's personifying the ocean. She's giving it human-like qualities. And then we have symbolism. So symbolism is a person, place, or thing that represents an abstract idea that is beyond itself. So it's not just, in the example, for instance, one ring to rule them all. That's the Lord of the Rings, and this is an example that we've gone over already in the past. So one ring to rule them all represents ultimate power, right? So this isn't just, it's not just a ring. The ring represents something. right? And like with superheroes, for instance, and I gave this example already in the past, but with superheroes, their capes, their emblems, you know, the Flash has like the lightning bolt, Iron Man has that like heart thing, Captain America has his shield, Spider-Man has his webs, I guess. Ignore the Spider-Man one, but all of these superheroes, the Flash with his lightning bolt, Iron Man with his little like heart of iron, and Captain America with his shield, they represent their heroism. They represent the fact that they are heroes, that they are doing the right thing. They represent ultimate goodness. Whereas supervillains, like Thanos and the Gauntlet, represent ultimate badness, so evil. This is we see this a lot in stories like Harry Potter, for instance, where it's a story all about good versus evil. Harry and his lightning bolt on his forehead, for those of you who have read it, represents ultimate goodness. It represents family, it represents love. Whereas Voldemort and the snake and all of that, it represents evil and cruelty and bad. And we see it a lot even in the Bible, right? So we have the story of Adam and Eve, which I'm sure all of you guys have heard this. Eve ate the apple from the snake, right? So the apple represents temptation. The snake now represents something evil. And we've seen it throughout a lot of different stories in literature that snake represents something evil. Or snakes are evil. They symbolize this. They have this symbol now attached to them because of that Adam and Eve story. So there's a lot of symbolism taking place in a lot of literature, and usually it's giving one thing a symbol that represents something deeper than what it actually is. The next one, we have repetition. So repetition, you guys already know this, is repeating a word or phrase over and over in a text to emphasize an idea. Now, this is something that I've been telling you since the beginning of the year. Every time you see the word repetition, we're going to say the word emphasize. So the repetition emphasizes something, right? So in our example, it says, I ate and ate and ate, and I became more and more lost. So she's repeating there the word ate. And this is also from a memoir by Roxane Gay. It's called Hunger. And she's repeating the word ate to emphasize how her hunger for food and how much she ate, how it ended up making her more and more lost in life. And the book essentially is about gaining weight and obesity, but her saying I ate and ate and ate is emphasizing how much she was actually eating, how she was basically swallowing her feelings through her food. And then we have anaphora. An anaphora is the repetition of a word or a phrase throughout a paragraph at the beginning of a sentence. So you're going to see a full paragraph in a text. And if you see anaphora, it's because the word is being repeated at the beginning of the sentence. So in Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream, which we read earlier this year, he says, go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. So he's using anaphora by repeating go back over and over and over in that text. So when you guys write your memoirs, you're going to be required to use at least two of these figurative language techniques in your memoir. So practice using them, and that's what this activity is all going to be about. So we have the activity one, and I'm going to go back to this in a second. I want to show you guys what the activity is. So part two, after you finish part one, right, answering these 3 questions is part one. Now we're going to go to part two. So part two has 2 activities. The first one is figurative language practice, and what you're going to do is you're going to determine what type of figurative language the sentence is using, and you're going to explain the deeper meaning it gives the text. Only use the words in the word bank. So we have the word bank here, and our options are metaphor, personification, hyperbole, imagery, symbolism, and repetition. They will only be used once. They will not be repeated. You only need to use these 6 words to answer these 6 questions, okay? And so I started off with an example here, and I'm going to go over it in a second. And then part two of that activity is for the following 4 sentences, you're going to transform them into either a figurative sentence or a literal sentence. So you have one or the other that's blank. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the figurative sentence, right? If it gives you the figurative one, you're going to take that and you're going to transform it into a literal sentence. Or if it gives you the literal sentence, you're going to turn it into a figurative language sentence. So you're going to use something, one of the words that we learned here, simile, metaphor, hyperbole, imagery, personification, symbolism, repetition, anaphora, to transform those sentences into something else. So I have here the examples that we have in the text, and so we're going to do the 2 examples together. So for the first one, it says, Albus sat like a carved white stone. And so this is the easiest one, and I know that you guys know this one the best, which is why I didn't give it to you as an option and why I'm doing it for an example. But automatically, we know that this is a simile because of the word like, right? Albus sat like a carved white stone. So it uses the word like in the sentence, so it's comparing 2 different things, right? So I'm going to look at the sentence, and I'm going to try to find what it's comparing. So who sat, right? So like Albus sat like, and what did he sit like? He sat like a carved white stone. And a carved white stone is just a very stoic, like steady stone. And so when I explain here, when I explain what the writer did and what figurative language they're using, I'm going to say the writer is using a simile to compare Albus's pose, right? He's sitting like a carved white stone to a white stone, meaning he's sitting very still. So a carved white stone is sitting very still, very stoic, very steady. And so it's saying that Albus is sitting very still. But instead of saying Albus sits very still, now they're comparing it. They're giving us a different kind of image. They're saying he sat like a carved white stone. So it's using figurative language to make the sentence sound better and stronger. And then you guys would finish off questions 1 through 6 using the word bank. And then you would go to activity 2. And activity 2 says, there are a lot of students in the park. So it gave me the literal sentence, and now I have to turn it into a figurative language sentence. So if there are a lot of students in the park, something that I could use hyperbole, for instance, to exaggerate how many students are in the park. So hyperbole is an exaggeration, right? So if there are a lot of students in the park, there could be millions of students in the park, or zillions or trillions of students in the park. There actually aren't trillions of students in the park, right? But it says that there are a lot, so now I'm using hyperbole to exaggerate it. So there are millions of students in the park is a figurative language sentence because I'm using hyperbole to exaggerate how many students are in the park. And so what you would do, right? Those are the 2 examples here. There are a lot of students in the park. There are millions of students in the park. And then we have Albus sat like a carved white stone. And then the writer is using simile to compare Albus's pose to a white stone, meaning he's sitting very still. You guys would finish off these activities. So here you would just type out, right? You would tell me the writer is using, I don't know. You're going to give me one of these 6 words to explain. So you're going to give me one of those words. Let's say imagery. It's not imagery. You know what? I'm not going to say that. You're just going to tell me what the writer is using. This first one is not imagery. You're going to tell me what the writer is using, and you're going to explain to me what that means. So the writer is using imagery to show that, to appeal to what sense and to show what, to help us learn what about the text itself. Then in this sentence here, all you're gonna do is practice switching it up, okay? And then finally, and that's gonna be it for part 2 of this activity. And so we're gonna go over part 3 because part 3 is gonna take you about 2 seconds long. Should not take you that long. But this is part 3, and I also have it here. So in part 3 of your lesson, this is the last part. So part 3 of your lesson, you're going to practice writing your own memoir. And that's what the activity that you guys are going to do next week. To help you guys out and to help you guys start thinking about what you guys have to do, because I know a lot of you guys procrastinate, you guys have to do this as the last activity of the week. right? So the directions for this part is next week you will be instructed to write your own memoir using the techniques you learned in the past 2 weeks, including figurative language. To get you guys started, think about the following questions. Then in the box below, please type a topic you may be interested in writing about. So by Friday of this week, so by April 10th, you should have one topic that you're interested in writing about for your memoir so that you guys can get started on that. Next week, April, when is next week? Let me see. Whenever next Monday is, so April 10th, 11th, 12th, so April 13th, you guys are going to get a map so you guys can map out your story, and by that Friday, April 17th, your memoir is due, okay? Yeah, so by April 17th, your memoir will be due, okay? So start thinking about what you guys want to write about. Ask yourself these questions, right? What is the most important thing that has ever happened to you? What is your happiest memory? What is the worst thing that has ever happened to you? What is a very sad memory you have? Or what memory has shaped you or changed your life in some way? You don't have to answer all of these questions, okay? These are just suggestions. What I do want you to have is one topic, one memory that you're interested in writing about, right? And it doesn't have to be sad or depressing or something that you're uncomfortable writing about. It's just a memory that has changed you in some way, right? It could be meeting your best friend, meeting your significant other, meeting your favorite teacher, anything that has changed you in some way. And you just write your answer where it says write your answer here, you would type out your answer there, okay? And I actually want to show you guys this because I did the same thing in the last one. So what you would do is all you have to do is highlight it, delete it, and then type, okay? That's what I meant by type your answer here. So that's where you would type your answer, and then you would submit, right? And so these are essentially your assignments for Monday through Friday. Please stay on pace, follow a schedule, give yourself enough time to do everything for all your classes. Don't sleep in too much. Don't sleep in until 12 or 1 p.m. This is a reason why you guys are saying that you don't have time to do anything. It's because you guys have been sleeping in so much. You're still in school. This is still school. You still should be waking up early. My office hours are 8 to 11 a.m. and you guys don't start texting me until 1 or 2 p.m. Wake up early. Give yourself time in the morning to do work. Spend an hour doing English, an hour doing math, an hour doing science, an hour doing history, an hour doing elective courses, Spanish, intensive reading, any of those. These classes are very important. Your grades still matter. Just because we're not testing does not mean that you're not getting graded for any of this. So make sure that you're actually getting your work done. And if you have any questions, reach out to me via Instagram, DM, or Remind. And if you know someone who doesn't have me on either of those platforms, let them know. And also make sure that if you have any questions about any of these assignments, you're writing them down and you're asking me those questions during our Zoom meetings, which will take place every Monday and Wednesday. Okay, that is it for this video, and I hope you guys do your work. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please submit your work on time and have a great day.